What is happening out there, Roto Scouts football fans? What's happening, gang? What's going on? Welcome to a Monday show. A Monday night football action. Get us started for the week. Round out week 5 of the NFL season. 5 weeks basically in the books already. We've got playoffs going on. If you're a Guardians fan, if you're a Tigers fan, hope you're enjoying this one. Nothing in the 9th. Just had a game-saving play in left field on both sides. Pretty ridiculous catch by Stephen Kwan. Saved the game and left in the last inning. Got replayed. I think it looked like a catch to me. I thought he had it initially. The replay made it look a lot closer. But I think he got the glove down. Got the Royals and the Yanks in a little bit. Projections are up for that one if you still need to change your lineups around for the baseball slate. Couple of unexpected John Birdies playing for the Yanks. I had Ozzie Cabrera in there initially. But a really good game going on in Cleveland right now. But we're here to talk about the other KC team, of course. They're going to be battling the New Orleans Saints tonight. Good game. Saints and Chiefs, always a good one. 43.5 points on the board. But, you know, could definitely get some a little bit more of a shootout than that. Both of these teams capable of going up and down the field and scoring. KC favored by 5 in a home game. Makes some sense, but at worst, I like New Orleans to hang with them for DFS production. So far this season, New Orleans averaging 31.8 points per game, first in football coming into week 5. KC on their side, just 23 points per game. That's 14th. They've been quietly scoring, winning football games, but it hasn't looked like, the KC really hasn't looked like they've been firing on all cylinders. Haven't really needed to. But overall, they just seem a little bit not right. We saw Kelsey out to the slow start. He had his biggest week of the season last year. Still hasn't found the end zone, but at least caught a solid number of passes. Put up a decent, not great yardage total, but decent. Still looking for that first real Kelsey game, though. Couple of missing pieces. Primarily still that KC running game. Obviously squished down to the point where they're back to Kareem Hunt now. He's projected out as the lead running back tonight. Still going to get bit a little bit for some touches by Samaje Perine. Probably a lot less so by Carson Steele, who we initially liked to take over that job. That obviously didn't happen. I feel like I wasted a little bit of fab on that one in the season-long leagues. I got the pickup basically in every league, but did not work out. But I really like the setup for this game as far as Showdown goes. We've got 2 competent enough defenses to work with. We've got 2 good enough kickers to work with. A lot of different pieces up and down on both sides as far as skilled players go. We've got depth tight ends on both sides that we know we love. We've got some solid downfield options. We've got a pretty good mix as far as just the configuration of a Showdown slate goes. So really like what we're working with today. And again, 43.5 point total. Plenty of meat on the bone there. Let's say hi to everybody as we dive in. Anthony Taylor's here. Andy's here. Jake Swales. Cujo. Good crowd already. Mamba's here. Greg Biancone. Yeah, Greg, totally with you. I love a good pitcher's duel in the postseason. Just like heightens the tension and drama the whole way through, you know? Definitely interesting. Mama's not saying so much. Going to buy myself something nice with the big win. Just wanted to say good luck tonight, everybody. Good stuff, Mama. Appreciate it. Congrats on whatever the big win was. I remember you said something over the weekend that you had a decent one. Hopefully you rolled it up on Sunday. Not my best Sunday in the world. Definitely was another weird game for Geno Smith. Ended up coming through with like 20-some-odd FanDuel points. He had an okay game. Had the game I was projecting, but just took a while to get there to the total. And it was another game where it was just, woo, that's a shot. Did you get a double out of that? Tigers threatening Klaus. First and third, 2 down for Detroit against best closer in baseball right now. Interesting. But Giants receivers. Yeah. Giants had a bit of an unexpected day. I wrote up Tyrone Tracy in the under. I wasn't expecting him to go off like that. Inexperienced kid who barely ran in college and then had been a converted wide receiver. 6-year senior last year. I just wasn't expecting it. There wasn't a lot of track record there. Had a pretty decent game, and then Slayton popping off for a big game, and just more to the point, the from me anyway, the Seattle receivers just underwhelming overall, especially DK, kind of burnt me. That Denver defense came through though. We talked about that. Had a lot of hits, just not in my lineups. Not the best config of lineups in the end of the day for me. But anyway, the showdown slate was a lot better for me last night. But love diving into this one. Top of the board with the quarterbacks, two very high-end quarterbacks in my opinion. We've got Mahomes obviously pushing the top of the board a little bit more just for everything that he does out on the field. He's still kind of looking for his big day. He hasn't cracked 250 yards since week 1. That week he completed 20 of 28, 291 yards, a touchdown and an interception. He's been good, not great throughout. 245 with a touchdown and an interception. Last week, 2 touchdown passes in each of the 2 games in the middle in weeks 2 and 3. For the season, completing 20 of 30, basically. 69% of his passes. You'd like to see that over 70, but it doesn't really matter. 220 and change yards. He's thrown 6 touchdowns against 5 picks. That ratio needs to improve for sure. Touchdown passing just feels a little bit light across the league. And I say feels, but I mean... at least as of last week, the numbers were down, and I don't think we fully caught up this week. 7.5 yards per pass attempt for Mahomes on the season, just 5.6 intended air yards per attempt. They don't air it out quite as much as a lot of teams do. A lot of these guys operate a little bit underneath and then try and make things happen, but Mahomes more than capable of uncorking one when he needs to. The ADOT leader on this team currently Justin Watson at 11.1. But if you look on the other side, you got a little bit of a deeper threat in Rashid Shaheed at 14.5. He's garnering 50% of their air yards. Kelsey, a downfield operating tight end, not one of these tight ends that's just working in and around the line of scrimmage and not gaining all that much. But again, not having the strongest start to his season overall. 5.3 targets a game, just catching just under 4 of them, putting up just under 40 yards a game, yet to find the end zone, I think is the critical factor there. But we know that Kelsey's more than capable of just turning the engine over and coming up with that 3-touchdown monster performance. So I think you absolutely just go back to him 86-13, let the price come down and know that the player is not really truly diminished, maybe a little bit. Tight ends do age quick at the end, so it could be happening to him. But considering the targeting is still there, considering that the quarterback is still going to look to him as the number one connection, I think we're fine, at least for tonight. With Kareem Hunt taking the majority of the opportunities in the backfield when it comes to the running game, he carried the ball 14 times last week for 69 yards after a DNP in the first 3 weeks. Looks to have basically seized the job. He was targeted 3 times. Gary Carpenter just hit a 3-run home run. Goddamn Tigers. Carpenter's so good. 3-run homer off of Clase to go up 3-zip. Guardians look stunned. I want to say that again real quick. Oh, come on. No replay? You just took Class A into the right field seats. Here we go. Woo! It was a shot, too. Nice swing. Biggie. Big home run. Anyway, we were talking about Kareem Hunt. Sorry to get distracted there. Just saw him. Caught it just out of the corner of my eye just as he was hitting it, and I had to look. So, Hunt seems to have basically seized this job, capable on the ground and in the passing game. It's one to watch for sure, but I mean, he played, 45% of the snaps last week. He does have Samaje Perine. Played 40% of the snaps, was out there for a chunk of the passing game. But Samaje Perine last week ran 15 routes, played the 40% snaps, went untargeted. Carried the ball 5 times for 14 yards and actually rushed for a touchdown. Carried the ball 6 times for 25 yards the week before. No touchdown. So he's taken a little bit of it away. You would expect more volume for Samaji in the passing game typically, but that didn't really come about despite running 15 routes last week. With Carson Steele, his mix-in was pretty limited last time out, just 11 snaps. It amounts to 18% of the snap share. He ran the ball twice for 6 yards, caught 1 of 3 targets. Technically, he was targeted more times than Samaji was, which is a really weird outcome. As a really super cheap mixer with a little bit of touchdown upside, if he's just in the game to spell the other two as they're down close, there's a tiny smidge of opportunity around Carson Steele just as a very low-owned, relatively low-cost showdown play. But if I was to do that, I'd rather go toward one of the secondary tight ends. I'd rather go toward one of the depth wide receivers, I think. In the receiving core for KC, in addition to Travis Kelce, Xavier Worthy taking up the top spot. He caught 3 balls for 73 yards last week, including a touchdown that was on 4 targets. The target volume isn't insane. 4 targets in each of the last 3 games, 3 targets in the first game, averaging 3.8 per game, catching just 2 and change. 38.5 yards per game, a pretty solid 10.3 yards per target, with a chunk of that coming after the fact. 10.9 yard ADOT, though he is capable of getting up and getting downfield and getting open. 26% of the air yards. You'd see 25% going in Kelce's direction. And then just kind of a mix. You do have Noah Gray, one of my favorite second options at the tight end position in the league, because he does get regular targeting. It's 2.3 on the average, and he catches 2 on average. But he's got a 4-target week that just came last week. He caught all 4 of them for 40 yards. Had a 3-target week in week 1. He caught all 3 of them for 37 yards. Went untargeted in week 2 to bring the average down. That was on 12 routes run over 36 snaps. He runs basically the same number of routes, 10 to 12 routes. Plays 30 to 35 snaps or thereabouts. He's involved. He has a specific role in the offense. He gets targets in the red zone. He's been targeted in the red zone twice this season already in the limited volume over just 4 games. Not the highest scoring guy in the world, I'll say. But when we're just looking for those low-owned dart throws, those guys who do have at least a reasonable probability for a showdown slate, if Noah Gray catches that touchdown pass at 5-6% ownership probably in a flex roll, that's going to be slate winning. So he's one of those guys that I always have a good mix of on a showdown slate. In fact, he's one, as I said, one of my favorite guys for that kind of a role, just because of the regular targeting. And then it's kind of a mess. Justin Watson, Juju, Mecole Hardman. Hardman's easy. He's just out there running wind sprints. 1 route run in week 2. 2 routes run in week 3. 7 routes run last week. They're yet to target him. He hasn't played more than 8 snaps. Hasn't played 10 snaps yet all season. So not much consideration for Mecole. That actually might be even a little high on the projection number there. Sky Moore drew 2 targets last week, caught neither of them on 13 routes run. 4 routes run over 13 snaps. 7 routes run on 15 snaps the week before, 1 untargeted. Those are his only 2 targets of the season, came last week. Watson and Juju are really where you want to live. Or if you choose to live in the vicinity of one of these depth wide receivers, those are the 2 guys. Watson targeted 3 times last week, caught 2 of them for 27 yards. A couple of targets each week. Juju, no targets last week, 3 targets the week before. Caught 2 of them for 17 yards and a touchdown. It's been limited. I mean, these target averages are low. A couple of targets here, a couple of targets there. There's a lot of spread on KC. But they lack that true, Worthy's a decent top option. But really, he would be best served being a little bit further down the depth chart. There's no Rashee Rice at the top. It's just limited. In terms of the kicking game, Bucker, obviously, high scoring, highly involved, highly projected kicker. They're getting expensive. They're getting over-owned on these slates. They keep on landing on the board. They keep on coming through. This is a game that should have scoring back and forth and should see these offenses at worst march up and down the field. The Saints defense giving up 4.8 yards per rush attempt, just 6.9 yards per pass attempt. The rush ranks 26th. The pass ranks 14th. They've generated a 4% interception rate. That's pretty good, ranks 4th, but just a 7.59% sack rate. Pretty limiting. It's 12 sacks on the season, 6 interceptions. They get a little bit of pressure on the quarterback, 24.7% pressure rate. The other defense pressures the quarterback more, 30% pressure rate on like a 33% blitz rate. They've only come away with 8 sacks so far on the season. Their sack rate is 5.67% on that aggressive blitz. Ranks 26th overall. That one interception that they've got on the board, 0.75% as a rate, ranks 27th. They've given up 3.8 yards per rush attempt, so they've been pretty stout against the run, KC. But they've got a pretty aggressive running game to deal with Alvin Kamara. Multifaceted running back who can take the ball in any direction. Against the pass, they've been a lot more vulnerable, 7.1 yards per pass attempt. And again, haven't managed to pick anything off. Haven't really managed to bring the quarterback down despite putting pressure on him. But Derek Carr's not going to worry about that. So some opportunity for sure to pass against this team. But I do think KC's defense in the mix, and I think the same thing for New Orleans. And if those defenses are a little bit bend, don't break this week, with both offenses being able to move the ball down the field but not necessarily score, you can see the kickers absolutely being involved. On the New Orleans side, it's Blake Grupe. Perfectly fine. Projected a little bit lower than Harrison Bucker, but the kicker scoring is entirely opportunity-based, entirely game environment-based. As for Derek Carr, 18 of 25 to start the season, completing 72% of his passes, 6 touchdowns against just 3 interceptions, a solid 7 intended air yards per pass attempt, completing 8.2 yards per pass attempt, throwing for 200 yards a game. They come out, they do what they need to do, and then just kind of run the clock out and are somewhat conservative in their wins after he posts his initial numbers. For example, just 23, 16, and 25 pass attempts over the first 3 games. And then in week 4, they ramped it up. He threw the ball 36 times, 28 of 36, 77.8% of his passes, 239 yards, but did not throw a touchdown pass that week. Just 1 touchdown pass over the last 2 games against Philly and Atlanta. That's against 2 interceptions. Started the season a little bit hotter than that. 3 touchdowns the first week, 2 with an interception in week 2. Had a solid downfield connection with Rashid Shaheed. We'll see how that comes and goes. Shaheed got shut out in week 3 against Philly. It was a big part of a lot of people's lineups that week. Came back with a solid 8 catches for 83 yards, doubled his highest catch count for the season. Was targeted 11 times in week 4. Big play opportunity, tons of downfield targeting. Touchdown dependent for getting over the top as far as your captain slots, as far as your MVPs, as far as being the slate winner. But capable of putting up a pretty solid yardage number. In a flex role, you can definitely get away with him without scoring the touchdown. Carr finds Chris Olave pretty frequently. Olave's got a touchdown on the board, a 10.1 yard ADOT, garnering 33.75% of the air yards on 6 targets a game. Getting actually a little bit out-targeted, though, by Shaheed at 6.3 targets a game on the average. 14.5 yard ADOT, it amounts to 50% of their air yards. He's scored twice on big plays. Do I have the... Don't have it, but I can get it. maybe not. I thought it was in here. Yeah, for Shaheed, 2.77 yards per route run, 2.12 air yards per snap. I don't have the depth of target, though. I don't know why. There we go. That's what I was looking for. Had a 40-plus yard catch in each of the first 2 weeks, and then had a 20-plus yard catch in week 4. And again, just got shut out on 5 targets in week 3. So you get those clunkers from time to time, just given the nature of the receiver. But definitely a solid weapon. He's going to be played. He's going to be popular in public lineups, but he'll be lower owned than a lot of his teammates, namely Alvin Kamara, who's going to be owned through the nose by everybody on both sides. Kamara, a volume monster in terms of potential touches. Last week, 28 potential touches, 26 actual, 19 carries. Saw 9 targets, caught 7 of them for 42 yards. Week before that, same thing, 29 potential, 29 actual. 29 the week before that, too. Sometimes the volume mix changes. Like in week 3, it was 26 carries, 3 targets. In week 2, it was 20 carries, 3 targets. Oh, did I say the same thing for that week? I looked at the route number. The route number was 9. That week was 23 potential, 22 actual. Just 15 with 5 targets in week 1. That was his lowest volume at 20. But the last 2 weeks being in the 29 range, we're just looking to buy touches. We're just looking to buy potential and opportunities. And Kamara's one of the best in the business for that. Had his gigantic 4-touchdown game in week 2. 3 on the ground, 1 in the receiving game. Scored on the ground last week, 19 carries, 77 yards, and a touchdown. The Giant game, I shouldn't say Giant because it wasn't against the Giants. It was against their division rival Dallas Cowboys, in fact. The huge game that he had in week 2 was also his biggest rushing total, 115 yards on 20 carries that week. But he's been very good on the ground, 4.5 yards per rush attempt on the season, carrying the ball averages out to 20 attempts per game, 3.1 yards before contact per rush attempt, 1.4 after, 5 rushing touchdowns on the season. He's got a receiving touchdown, limited depth of target, typically catching the ball at or around the line of scrimmage, making things happen after the fact. Gaining 8.7 yards per target when you're catching the ball right around the line of scrimmage shows the explosiveness. Tigers win, by the way. Outside of Olave and Shaheed, we've got a couple of options down the board. The tight end position has been a little bit murky to start the season. We're down to a 2-man split, though, which is good. No Taysom Hill. So Foster Moreau, Juwan Johnson. Last week, Moreau played 40 snaps to Johnson's 47. It was the first time that Johnson played more snaps this season anyway. He was the more involved receiving tight end and has been the more frequently targeted out of the two. And just is the better receiver. Foster Moreau more of a blocking tight end. So I think I lean in that direction, Juwan Johnson as the primary target between these guys. But if you're looking for a very low cost, very low owned random second tight end with a little bit of potential touchdown upside, then Moreau is not completely uninteresting. He'll presumably be out there for roughly half the snaps. Last week, his volume was 57% of the snaps against Johnson, 68%. It's just he went untargeted. He ran 5 routes. In the 2 weeks prior to that, he ran 7 routes in each game, 44 snaps, 39 snaps. Just 2 targets across all those opportunities. He was targeted 4 times in week 1, caught all 4 of them, 43 yards and a touchdown, ran 9 routes. Hasn't had nearly that same opportunity. But if you get that game tonight as the secondary option, that could be potentially slate bending. Juwan Johnson also had a touchdown in that week 1 game, so it's not like they can't both get there in the right week, but you're really getting a little bit thin if you're putting both those guys into your lineup. But there is a little bit of justification given red zone targeting for both players. This is a team that'll go to the tight end position a little bit once they get in close. And there are, outside of Olave and Shaheed, more limited wide receivers. Cedric Wilson Jr. has been targeted once all season. Caught it for 3 yards, if that means anything. He's run a maximum 6 routes that came that same week against Philly. Mason Tipton down the board even further. Tipton, 3 targets in week 3 against Philly. Caught 2 of them for 11 yards. 1 target last week. Caught it for 6 yards. Did play 27 snaps. Ran 22 routes last week. He's seen an increasing route share and an increasing snap count each of the last couple of weeks. And then $200 Bub Means has ran a route. He's played 6 snaps the first 2 weeks. Did not play week 3. 6 and 5 snaps in week 4. Ran a route in week 1. Ran a route in week 4. Has not. He drew a target in week 1. Excuse me. He hasn't caught a ball yet, and he's only been targeted the once. That's why he costs $200. Jordan Mims has only played. He's gotten in there for a couple of snaps. Most of his action has been on special teams. All of his action in week 4 was on special teams. 12 snaps in the game, all on special teams. In the games where he played a couple of offensive snaps, and I'm talking about a maximum of 5 that came in week 1, he ran 1 route in that game. He went untargeted. That was the only route he's run all season. So I think these 2 guys are basically just scratches. Mason Tipton as a depth option, you could probably take a few shots with. I think it's probably justifiable to give him another 0.08 of a point over there on FanDuel just to get him into the mix if you go 1 or higher. It's probably justifiable to put him there. He'll run a couple of routes tonight, but extreme limitation, extreme dart throw nature for that receiver. Holker is expected to be active, but has not debuted. 24 years old. I believe he was undrafted. 6'3", 241. Will presumably fill the third tight end option, which traditionally in this offense, when it's been these 2 and Taysom Hill over the first couple of weeks, they were all getting snaps. But this kid, not Taysom Hill, doesn't do all the things that Hill does on the field. So probably just going to be a depth option today and not really see that many snaps. And if he's out there, I can't imagine all that much upside. Coming up on 7 o'clock, been talking about the player-by-player stuff here real quick, but we'll jump over. We'll build a couple lineups by hand in a minute, and then we'll pull up acemine.io, and we'll check out some of the Sims results for the Sims that I've run. Power, that's sick. Power pointing out that Emmanuel Clase had allowed 5 earned runs in 6 months in the regular season. He allowed 3 on that smack from Kerry tonight. And Clase had 2 outs with 2 strikeouts. Whew. Yowza. Anthony Taylor, yeah, I can say. Carpenter, if you're going to do that, Carpenter's a really good choice for that when there's a lefty starting because he's almost always going to get a pinch hit opportunity. But that's what obviously they were fishing for. That is the ideal and only good outcome for that play. But they got it. All right, Mikol's going to play. So again, with just pull it up here. With Hardman, didn't practice on Friday. Was dealing with a knee issue through the week. But he was officially off the injury report. But again, the limitations have been primarily snap count. He played 8 snaps with the offense last week. He ran 7 routes. Hasn't been targeted all season. He's been playing a lot on special teams. $80 kick return yards so far in the season. 40 punt return yards. You know, if you play him, it could be in that gadgety way of doing the double dip around a defensive touchdown. If he runs one back, have him and the KC defense, and double dip on that touchdown if he manages to break one on special teams. But his targeting is very thin. As I said a bunch of times, though, I mean, I do like getting those players when there is any idea of volume. I love a good kick return man who's going to get a couple of targets. Throw it to him underneath and let him break one. So, from that perspective, maybe a couple darts if you're building a lot of lineups. In like one lineup, that's probably not your guy. Even for a showdown slate, probably not your guy. I was looking up that Holker guy. Was at Colorado State in 2023 after 3 years at BYU. 6 touchdowns on 64 catches. 12 yards per reception over 12 games. Seems like decent production as a receiving tight end in college, but I don't think it's one that we're really fishing that far down the depth chart for. That was Dallin Holker. Maybe out there for a couple of snaps. Knowing the Saints, they'll do something stupid like throwing the ball in the end zone when they get in close, but it feels like a stretch. Let's fire up the old builder over here. Everything should be in order. Any requests? Throw Kelsey. I'll start one, and then let me know what you guys want to see, and we'll see what we can do here. But I'll start an easy build. Kelsey Mahomes, the old connection. I'll take some Shaheed because I'm a fan. And I'll give him the quarterback to work with. It's a straightforward build to start. 4,200 a spot. Now we get interesting. You could double up. I kind of like this idea with this team. Doubling up both the tight ends. And you're really fishing for the Noah Gray touchdown when you play him at all. But his target volume is regular enough to support the idea that he could get his 3 to 5 targets, put up a couple of yards. If he happens to fall in the end zone, great. It's not going to really impact anything going Kelsey's direction. And then Kelsey just needs to have his game. So that's easy enough for those two to pay this off. And then you could go like a Butker share there to lower. 21 dupes, though. Meh. That's the thing with Gray. He's not exactly a secret, so he's got some ownership on him. Going with Casey's defense against that. 119 dupes. Obviously going with Butker was the better direction there. You get supercharged at the tight end position. Another 21 dupes on that one, though. This is a pretty straightforward build. Let me get Gray out of there. We'll do it a different way. Some like Juju in here. And then 57. You go Butker with that one. That's still 23. Double defense. Whoa. 761. Nope, that's not right. I forgot to change the defenses. It's not looking them up. That's what I was like, 761. How the hell? Alfred. They're dealing with a lot of dupes on all of these. All right, so let's change this part out. I want to leave Carr because I want the double quarterback. I think this is a key game to have the double quarterback, and definitely one of the quarterbacks in most of your lineups in the flex spot. A lot of scoring is going to go through those positions. Obviously, Kamara is the big guy that I haven't touched for this lineup yet, and that's the case where if you're going away from the quarterback position, it's probably primarily going away from Carr, which renders Mahomes a lot more owned, a lot more popular on this slate, and in most of those non-Carr lineups, you're going to, out of necessity, have some Alvin Kamara. I didn't talk about Jamal Williams. I skipped over him. Got in the end zone in week 1. 11 carries for 38 yards. That was his carry high. It was his snap high. It was his only touchdown of the year. But we know that he's capable of busting one in. With the limited targeting that the tight ends have seen, with these two tight ends active, it's reasonable to think maybe Jamal Williams takes a carry to fill that in close. Would have been a tight end target, red zone target kind of a spot. Depends on what's going on, what down and distance we're talking about. But you could see opportunity for Jamal Williams to bust one in. He's run a couple of routes and drawn a couple of targets each game. So he could, again, presumably fill that role. He's carried the ball in the red zone every single week this season. Twice in week 1, scored a touchdown. 3 times in week 2, just once in each of the last 2 games, but has carried the ball in the red zone. 1 red zone target on the season, that came in week 3. But he's a player who gets involved down doing the dirty work when they're in close. So it's not completely nuts to think that Jamal Williams could succeed here as well. All right, so if we're going that direction, let's go with the Johnson instead of Shaheed slot there. Actually, what is that? Let's go back to that one. What does it look like if we go? That's a little better. 12. Yeah, you can get in that territory with whatever you do after that. You can obviously get more dart throwy around, a guy like this, but there's obviously, you're sacrificing a chunk of projection with that. Same thing with Tipton down there. So what do we got there? What happens if I try and stick Kamara into this? 37, you can fill that easy. Kamara and Jamal. That's a weird way to take that one. That one gets down to 6.25. It's obviously most of that differentiation is just coming purely from said Wilson here. It's not completely insane to think that this could come through, though. I mean, that connection's the easy part. You need Cedric Wilson to not necessarily even get in the end zone because he's so cheap. A couple few catches up and down the field and some yardage pays that off. And then you're looking for the Kamara and Jamal Williams and Derek Carr to have an okay day but not necessarily throw a touchdown. Or if he does, that touchdown has to get thrown to one of these two guys. And the good news there is that they do throw to both of those guys when they get it in close. Mostly to Kamara. But it's there. The opportunity is realistic. That lineup's not completely crazy, but through the lens of let's look for the most differentiated version of a Kelsey captain lineup that's still somewhat realistic that we could build. Let's get something different going, though. As Andy points out, yeah, some people will play the backup QBs tonight. I believe that's called the Siege Special now. Siege from, what is it, RG? Or wherever I knew him from RG back in the day. Not knew him, but was familiar with him from podcasts and such. I don't know where the hell he is now. Was never a big fan. Not the best takes in the world. Never struck me as the best dude in the world. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't like to get involved. Stay over here in my little corner. Speaking of which, check out rotoscouts.com. Make sure you're jumping in behind the paywall, gaining access to everything. I finally figured out how to put a little download link in there for you guys. All this time, I've been under the impression that it was some app, some add-on, I forget what they call, widget thing that I had to pay for. Turns out I could just upload the file into the actual WordPress document and just put a link. So hopefully you guys can enjoy that. So full CSV downloads are available now. Baseball projections, all the baseball content is up there. Football projections for this game is up there. All the football content through the week, going into great detail over the weekends. Under $1 a day, regardless of which plan you pick. Weekly, monthly, quarterly. The only question is which plan fits your budget and your expectations the best. How much of a chance do you want to give us? So check those out. Everything is designed specifically for people building just a couple of lineups. People who are looking to dive in, get some good information, get some good data, but not have to pay a couple $100 for building a few dollars worth of lineups. So give us a look. Also check out our guys at acemind.io if you haven't already. Promo code RotoScouts all in caps gets you 20% off your first month over there. We'll do another one of these real quick. 7:10. We're doing okay on time. This game starts at 8:15. So we'll do a couple more of these, and then we'll take a look at some Ace Mind results. So Patty Mahomes is going to be a popular captain play. There's no way around that. The first thing I would think here is, all right, I don't necessarily want to go directly to a Mahomes captaincy Kelsey in the first flex spot there, or maybe not even worthy. But Noah Gray sounds good for that role. Obviously, we're thinning out a Kelsey stack immediately by doing that, but something that I would do to bounce that back would be to put Kareem Hunt in there and just consider it a lower volume, successful Mahomes day where we don't necessarily worry about where the opportunities are going as far as stretching to some of these down board guys so that we're skipping Kelsey because we're feeding some of the opportunity expectation through Kareem Hunt here. We give them that connection. And then we're just taking our completions from Mahomes to pad the scoring. I think we could probably get Kamara into this one easy enough. And then we forgo Derek Carr. And then we've got 6,000 to work with. You could put Carr into this lineup, honestly. There's still plenty of salary. 2,500. Get to anything down here. Like, that's not ideal, but it's easy enough to do. And there's scoring upside there. This is dumb. I didn't even notice that. Juwan only 22. You can see the difference there with Juwan, right? You just the direct tight end replacement in that New Orleans offense. If I'm Juwan Johnson here, the guy I greatly prefer, if I'm just gun to my head in a vacuum, don't care about ownership or anything, who's going to score the touchdown between the two tight ends on New Orleans, I would definitely say Juwan Johnson. But Foster Moreau is drawing at least a couple targets. Again, more of the blocking tight end, but he's going to be out there for more than half the snaps. It cuts you by a significant enough chunk of ownership and duplication. Saves you money. You can change something up here. But if you get to that last spot, that's worth the consideration because, again, it goes sub 10. It cuts it more than in half. If you take it a different direction, say you go no Carr. Going no Carr, I could get some Chiefs D in there. That's not terrible. Like a groupie. That's reasonable enough. Again, just trying to think through like the narrative part of it. I think the Hunt and the Chiefs defense part of it works in tandem. The Chiefs defense being in there supports the Carr fade, and you can have Kamara in there. Even if he scores, it's fine. You're only whittling it down so far. Let's say the Chiefs get to Carr a couple of times with all that pressure, all that pass rush that they throw, despite their lack of success actually getting to the quarterback this season. It's there. The potential is there. So limit the throwing, limit the scoring, feeds the kicker upside. Sub 10 dupes, that's not a terrible DraftKings lineup. Plenty of money to work with if you want to swap something out. Take them out of there and 71. For 64, you can get to Samaji and just double up the rushing game, and you're still 7.95. That might even be better as a lineup. I don't completely hate that. Because there's realistic upside that a Mahomes passing touchdown could go to one of these, like to Hunt or Samaji. Like actual tangible potential for that, not like a wing and a prayer dart throw kind of. I think he knows that guy's name. He might throw him the ball. These are guys that are regularly going to be targets. And then nothing changes about the New Orleans side of that program. If you went to the straightforward Kelsey option there, obviously we got to do something about that salary. Happens there. 61. That's probably the most straightforward way to do it, obviously. Probably wouldn't want to double up the running back position there. Those guys are going to be the straightforward three most owned guys. Maybe it's Worthy over Hunt, but those are going to be three popular choices from KC, so let's see what we can do with this. I don't love the uncorrelated receiver idea from New Orleans. I think I would probably go hunting for the Jamal touchdown in this build. And Jamal Blake groupie works together fine. And then you can maybe go back to the Chiefs D. And again, sub 10 dupes, you're leaving $5,000 on the table. There's again plenty to work with to change things out. But that's a quick, easy way to get it below 10 dupes that is not completely unreasonable. You can, again, there are definitely opportunities going in Jamal Williams' direction to punch the ball into the end zone for a very, very cheap price. If the primary scoring for New Orleans, or the one time they get in the end zone, goes to Jamal Williams, that obviously feeds your upside for the Chiefs defense. Presumably they're having a good day. And it feeds Blake Groupie's upside because presumably he's going to get a few opportunities to kick the ball. So again, to get under 10 dupes with a lineup that tells a very realistic story, and this version of this lineup is the same amount of dupes, and you're getting Mahomes, Kelsey, Hunt out of it. That's not bad. To me, that looks like a pretty playable DraftKings lineup. Casey's probably going to cut ties with Power. He's making too much noise. Oof. Rishi Rice season expected to be over. He's going under anesthesia to investigate further. It looks like an LCL repair. That sucks. Do one more DraftKings. I'll throw together a quick, slap together FanDuel kind of a lineup, and then we'll look at Ace Mind. Let's go Olave. I feel like I've been ignoring poor Chris Olave. Not as much as Derek Carr has. This is going to be kind of similar. Actually, you know what? Let's go Worthy. We haven't used Worthy here either. And he's more expensive, so it makes it more interesting. Boy, it's so easy to just go to these tight ends because, I mean, that is cheap. And realistic correlation there and there. This version, if I'm putting both Johnson and Olave in, obviously, if Carr, you could build the same thing with Carr in the captain spot, and probably would pay to take a look at that. 71 apiece, easy to go any direction you want. That's fewer dupes than I thought that was going to have. I don't love the Kelsey and Worthy uncorrelated no Mahomes thing of it. But it's not completely impossible that works out. For a lineup that's kind of built out of some of the most popular players on the slate, it's probably one of the lower duped ways that you could put that collection of players together. Obviously, you could get lower duped if you just went, Juwan Johnson up there. There's 4 dupes, so there are lower owned ways to put that together, but within the more realistic realm, the interesting one to check would be well, I screwed that up. Also not bad. It's actually probably better. Carr and the captain with Olave and Johnson. Worthy, Butker, Kelsey coming out of the other side. Again, it's not ideal to have both those receivers without the correlation of their quarterback. But if it's a light game for the Chiefs in terms of the passing scoring, that could work out. Mahomes picks up a negative with with some interceptions, which he's not invulnerable to. Anything we can do to trim below like 10 dupes, I'm always a fan of doing. And then just again, as I've said a number of different times, just tell the story in your head. Does this lineup make sense? Can this work? Is this something that am I just throwing together parts here, or is there a legitimate path to this game actually coming together? And I think there's a very legitimate path to this game coming together. Bucker being in there supports the idea that the KC offense kind of fell short. These guys just did what they could. Catching the ball up and down is the primary, the 1-2 weapons where most of the targets are going for that KC offense. Not a terrible lineup, in my opinion. Take a look at a FanDuel build real quick, and then again, we'll pull up Ace Mind, and we'll look through some of those. FanDuel, you get a ton of just the most obvious, straightforward guy in the MVP spot. I don't love doing those builds just for this, but yeah, let's take it a different direction. I like getting some skill player involvement up there. Get some Shaheed, some Carr. And then FanDuel's been a little bit challenging around just some of the high prices, even without the multiplier. Let's see what we can do, though. What happens if I do put Mahomes in? 97. Oh, this is not going to be one of those challenging ones. And you can go directly to Noah Gray for just 7, and then you're back up at a exorbitant price. You can have basically whatever you want. 15 dupes, obviously. That needs work, but it's just feels a little silly that you can just straight up pay for that. Hunt, Saints D, and anything you want. I can defend it. It's not my favorite lineup, but it does get us well under 10 dupes, which on FanDuel, I mean, if you're getting under 10, you're accomplishing something, unless you're sticking in one of the lowest end potential options. It's defensible, but it's not great. Obviously, if you just change out, well, let's see what this does. 58 dupes if you just go from Shaheed to Kamara in that MVP spot. That's how popular Kamara is going to be in the MVP. I think it's like 30+%. Viable, not my favorite. I do like quarterbacks in the MVP. They come through quite a bit. $16. Better. I like the idea of Jamal there over Jawan, though. Just because if I'm not going with the quarterback, the uncorrelated second running back, just to punch one in, give me my scoring there. If I'm going with Jawan, I kind of want to have Derek Carr. Well, I mean, I could, I guess. That's duped 25 times, though. The more clear path to that, I'm sure, is just a Foster Moreau. Can't be all that popular. Back down to 12. The Gray-Moreau combination in the heart of the lineup there. A little bit of an oddball. Let's see what we can get with a super popular eat the chalk kind of a lineup. All right. 7 per. That would immediately draw my eye to Noah Gray. But again, Gray not a secret in this role. People do know that these tight ends can get involved and that he is one of the involved tight ends in that spot. But you could do something like that. And then like Juju to support the upside of a KC. It's a Mahomes captaincy, so that makes sense as far as adding receivers, but you're duped out 26 times now, even with the double tight end combo there. So it's not great. You get funky around like a... Oh, it's negative. Damn. I guess you can't go that way. You could do that with, like I said, Wilson or somebody like that, just to get cheap and low owned. But that's kind of a cheat. Like if you went, there and 85, back to that KC defense play. Yeah, 13. Still, and that's not even great. We're not sub 10. It's not going to be a lot of ways to get this one down without just completely cheating it below the 10 mark. Like you go, I'm going to think that Mason Tipton's going to get his one catch and get in the end zone. And watch, this will still be crazy high owned. Go back to the Chiefs and just do the same comparison. Yeah, still in the 13 range, even with this guy drawing like nothing. So this combo is just lethal on being able to dedupe anything. Having those three players in any order. Probably the lowest owned combination of the three would be Kelsey in the MVP spot. But even that is going to be, there's going to be 10% Kelsey MVP ownership, I would expect. And within that 10% of Kelsey MVP ownership, probably 40% of those are going to include Mahomes and Kamara in flex spots. So just think about, the commonality of all of those lineups. You're only dealing with these two spots for differentiation. And you saw, even going with Mason Tipton, we're not getting any differentiation in there. So just something to bear in mind when you build FanDuel lineups for these silly tournaments. Let's take a look over at our guys at Ace Mind. Ran these sims earlier. Don't think anything's really changed. 727 doing okay on time. Devin's here. Devin Neiman, my Royals and Chiefs both playing tonight. Going to be drinking in celebration or sadness? Yeah, big day for KC fans, no doubt. Question, DK. I still read QQ as queen in my head. Just going back to the poker days. Devin's got pocket queens and he's got a question. DraftKings single entry, building a Chiefs onslaught with Mahomes captain. Last two pieces, Hunt and Gray or Bucker and the Chiefs D? You got lucky. I didn't close this yet. All right. Chiefs onslaught, Mahomes captain. What else is in there, Dev? If you're still within the sound of my voice. Hunt Gray or Bucker in the Chiefs D. You could just do like as a foundation. That 3-man foundation is 577 dupes versus Hunt and Gray. It's probably going to be pretty similar. 767. So on ownership, just the raw ownership of the 3-man combo, you're a little bit lighter. You're a little bit further away from the field with the Bucker Chiefs D. Kamara, Kelsey, Watson. Okay. So you're saying Bucker and Chiefs D. 16 dupes. It's probably going to be, again, lower on than this combo was. This was, what was it? It was Hunt and Gray. Yeah. So you're probably not dealing with that much variance as far as the actual outcome with those lineups. Pretty similar probability. Pretty similar scoring potential. 16 and change dupes on this version with KC and Bucker in there. Still got 700 to work with by my numbers. Versus 20-something here. Spending more of your money, but getting up to like 20 dupes. And you do have a little bit of the other version of this doesn't necessarily cannibalize itself as much as this one might. Right? Like a Mahomes stretched out over multiple receivers is going to have to do a lot of work that might impact Hunt. Not that Hunt doesn't have action in the receiving game, but that thins out the overall scoring potential for the full unit, where this kind of just correlates directly, where Bucker kicks his extra points, probably comes up with a few opportunities on times they don't punch it into the end zone, but Mahomes can have his big day without necessarily spreading it out as much, just going through the two guys that you've got there rather than needing to access a third receiver to give you scoring in that spot. So he can have his successful day, have the successful day with those two options, and then feed the kicker upside, and presumably if they're just dominating time of possession and everything. It helps out on their defense. Obviously, you need the defense to do its thing. But yeah, that's probably the way I would go with that. Not that the other one's a bad build. It's a very good build. It's just duped more. So, good in heavy quotes around the duped number. Let's pull up Ace Mind. Yeah, sure thing, bud. Again, ran these a little while before the show. This is your DK board. Can I make that look a little better? That's okay. Look, Kelsey and a Worthy off the top. I tell you what, that's a lot of differentiation in the captain spot right out of the gate. All the way down to having a Butker captain here. Surprising amount of differentiation in the captain role. Ton of Patty Mahomes. And as you go down the board here, this would fill up a lot more Mahomes. If you look over here, Mahomes captain is actually 46% of our top 150 lineups, which I believe is in excess of his public projection that went into this. So that, to me, tells me to hit the gas pedal a little bit on the Mahomes captain play, even if he is highly owned. He sims out significantly, nearly half of the top 150 plays. Again, if you go down the board, you can see quite a bit of Mahomes creeping in around the edges. With as much diversity as we had in that captain role, that is a lot of Mahomes. Not the majority necessarily, but quite a bit. Juwan Johnson getting a ton of shares through the flex spot, 61% flex. Derek Carr in 94% of the top 150 lineups, but almost exclusively, 94% in the flex role, almost exclusively owned in the, he's in almost every lineup. He's in 99% of the top 150 lineups. 94% in the flex role, though. That second lineup is unique. Worthy, Kamara, Mahomes, Derek Carr, Juwan Johnson, Mason Tipton. That Worthy Mahomes combo is doing a lot of heavy lifting in that one. Tipton's going to need his target. If he gets his target, you're there. Brings back $230 on the average. That top lineup, you can see, offset a little bit by projection as compared to a lot of these other ones. It's a highly projected lineup by comparison. You're offset by a couple of points. This one's higher. Not that projection is the do-all, end-all, obviously. If you haven't seen this before, it built a contest pool for 117,647 entry for the main contest tonight. Builds out the full pool. Runs 50,000 simulations of the full contest against that pool of lineups. And then I had it do that 7 different times. So obviously, projection, not the do-all, end-all here. That top ROI lineup brings back $276 on average. It was duped 7 times, but at the top end, if you're duped 7 times and you're chopping up $500,000 or whatever the top prize is on DraftKings, I promise you're still feeling pretty good about it. And as you saw, it's challenging to get dupes down as low as we, ideally want them. I do also like, as I've mentioned this before, if you go all the way over, the guys have everything down to the max. So that one was, the median dupes was 6, but the max times it was duped was 16. And that's a realistic number for that lineup as well. You could see that lineup duped out that many times. Kelsey, Kamara, Mahomes, Carr, Gray, and Johnson. I think we built that. Didn't I plug that in before? So, triple tight end. Definitely a showdown-oriented lineup for sure. Our guy Notorious Fantasy Nick would love that lineup. Harrison Butker lineup in the 4 spot there, though. That's not bad. Butker in the lead. A Butker Hunt combo kind of feeds itself. That makes some sense. I don't hate the idea of altering this lineup to plug in one of the defenses and just feed the idea of a low-scoring game where maybe one of the defenses does something. but that's a reasonable lineup, playable lineup that brings back $212 on average. In terms of other spots might want to get over, let's see. So despite that one's success and this one's success, they do hit up toward the top of the board in terms of our overall owners, our lineup scores here. But you can see Bucker, primarily 21% of the top 150, primarily landing in the flex spot, 2% in the captain spot. Sounds about right. Worthy is 18 in the flex, 6% in the captain. So that's one where I think his ownership in captain is lower than that in the projections, probably around that, but I think a little bit lower. It's me trying to remember what I glanced at briefly. If it's lower, let's say it's 3%, doubling it up to 6% makes a ton of sense based on this result, and that means you can push that out a little bit further if you have 10% against 5% popularity. Perfectly fine. Just tells you can get a little bit more. That Carson Steele one is weird. He does not have a great projection here. 3% of the flex roll, and 2% captain, and actually got through. Obviously, some salary-based action there with Kamara, Mahomes, Derek Carr, Xavier Worthy, and Juwan Johnson landing in the rest of that lineup. But you can see, if you just look at as a cheat, just glance at the raw projection, you can see the gap that is created by having Carson Steele in that in terms of your raw projection. Definitely would be very touchdown dependent there. Kels, 25% of the flex, 6% of the captain. Gray, 39% of the flex, 3% of the captain. A lot of upside for going in Gray's direction. Sky Moore creeping into just 2% of the top 150 in the flex roll, but managed to get into one of the top performers overall. Mason Tipton, same thing, 5% overall. But this is a board that absolutely, Juju at 17-1. This board absolutely supports the idea of taking some shots and diversifying. Samaje Perine, 3% in both roles. I'm sure this is over his projected captain share. A lot of different directions to take this. Power saying those tight ends are the truth. $2,500 third string Ravens tight end Kolar was the nuts on Sunday. There you go. Yeah, look, I'm telling you, that has been my chosen path to success in these showdown slates for the last few seasons, and it does work. It does pay out. You obviously are gonna take some lumps. It doesn't have to be in every one of your lineups, but I tend to think that those 2 to 3 target, play half the snaps, regular option Noah Gray type tight ends, and I talked about the lineup that I won with last year that had that monster payout. It was a lineup that had Will Dissly in it, and he happened to catch a 40-something yard touchdown in that game. He was playing behind Noah Fant as the tight end too, but he was seeing roughly half the snaps. He was seeing 3 to 4 targets a game. It was exactly the same game script that we're talking about. But again, Noah Gray in this game is going to be 10 times as owned as Will Dissly was in that one. Will Dissly was a 1% play in that game, or a 2% play. Gray's going to have popularity on him, so you do still need to stretch that a little further. And that's where, this Gray Sky Moore. Sky Moore wouldn't necessarily be my choice. Mason Tipton is also thin in that department. I talked about the numbers during the show, but again, Tipton has been targeted each of the last 2 weeks, has come away with some catches each of the last 2 weeks. He's played 18 snaps in week 3, 27 in week 4, 3 targets week 3, caught 2 for 11 yards, 1 target in week 4, caught 1 for 6 yards. But the idea that the dude's at least going to be out there catching the ball once or twice gives you a little bit of potential. There are probably ways to get to better options in those roles while protecting some of your upside. But these are true results out of that sim where even those super thin plays are coming through here. Just since I mentioned him, let me put the numbers back on Sky Moore again real quick. Yeah, Moore, 2 targets last week were his only 2 targets of the season. He played 13 snaps and ran 4 routes. Week before, he had played 15 snaps and ran 7 routes and was untargeted. He's played on special teams here and there, 3, 5, and 3 snaps each of the last 3 games. But you're getting awfully thin around those options. Take a quick scroll through so you guys can get some inspiration. This again is sorted to our top 150. If you're working with the tool at acemine.io, for one, when you subscribe, use promo code RotoScouts and get 20% off your first month. But know that you can get the full download up in the right-hand corner over here. You guys see that? Yeah. So you can get the full download. If you click this, it has all of the entries that it built. So it built 117,647 entry pool and removed the dupes. So let's say it was a 30,000 some odd unique entries in there. You have access to all of those lineups with all the scoring, all of the data right there. And somebody asked about the player stats the other day, and I was just not able to find it. I was at the end of the show and just for some reason blacked out on that tab. But player info right here. Oh, the ROI didn't populate. How bizarre. I wonder why. I'll let the guys know that ROI tab column didn't populate, but we do have the win probability on some of these guys. As you can see, you're just dealing with 0.01s, not much there, but your top 150 ownership exposure is some of the info that we were getting back off the other side. So it looks like this report didn't quite fill out properly. This would be the column that I would want there, and that would be the two. I'll give the guys a heads up. They'll have this fixed by tomorrow. But that's where that data will live and does live. It just didn't populate that report correctly. But again, check these guys out. Tons and tons of info. Tons of capability. On the FanDuel side, that's a lot of Patty Mahomes off the top. Patty Mahomes, Derek Carr, occupying quite a bit of those first lineups. And as we scroll down, a little bit of changes. Some Kamara dropping in there. A couple of Olave shares. A lot of Mahomes and Carr. Mahomes, 70% of the top 150. Carr, 67%. Those are lower numbers, though, than on DraftKings. Again, Carr was in 99% of the top 150 in the two different roles, just primarily in the flex. KC's defense coming in through significantly, 47% of the time in the flex role. A lot of KC defense. Holy hell. Smaller prize pools on FanDuel, more dupes on FanDuel typically. Top line up there, though, bringing back $100, 123. Mahomes, Carr, Olave, Rashid Shaheed, Noah Gray. We've talked through all those options, and I think that specific combination of those players. So straightforward on FanDuel. Double defense lineup here. I kind of like that one. Mahomes, Carr, Olave with the Saints and the KC defense. Some Harrison Butker here, 24% on Butker across all lineups. Where's Groupie? Just 9% on Groupie. So you're getting to more Butker. He's the higher projected of the two. If you wanted to even that out, you can do it artificially a couple different ways. Just even level them both off at like 7.5 fantasy points as a projection is one way. Give them the same standard deviation or increase the standard deviation for Groupies another way. You can also just, within the tool, you can give guys thumbs ups to get to more of them. Juwan Johnson in 20% on FanDuel. Trav Kelce right around the same number versus Noah Gray's 27%. So I think that was a higher number for Gray than Kelce on FanDuel as well. Yeah, 19 versus 27. Kareem Hunt dropping into 40%. Pretty key player on the FanDuel slate. Chris Olave right around that same level. Worthy in the 18% range. You can see, though, I mean, these are a lot more just straightforward top shelf players. FanDuel, just the nature of how FanDuel comes together versus those DraftKings lineups. The lowest end guy that we've got in these top 20 or whatever lineups are exposed here is probably Juju. Whereas in the DK lineups, it's Mason Tipton, Sky Moore. You do have to stretch a lot more on DraftKings, for sure. It's the better of the two games as far as the showdown slates go, for sure, in my mind. 7:45, we've taken a good look at the slate. Hopefully you guys got some good info out of that. I'll scroll down a little bit here so FanDuel people can get inspired. You can obviously slow these things down and pause and rewind. And again, these ran against the same thing, 79,000 entries, 50,000 times per pool, and I ran the pool 7 times. The sort was back to the 60-20-20 split. So your lineup score that these are sorted by was created with 60% weighted to ROI, 20% weighted to top 1, and 20% weighted to ownership. You can get into that when you build these. This is what your main screen looks like. So here's the thumbs that I mentioned. Right, the boosts. 10% boost or limit to a player projection. So it gives you a little bit of a bump on those guys. This is where you set the weights. I did change them before. I know that it's saved as 60, 15, 25. I changed that to a 20, 20 even split between those two. I just didn't save it. Your variety of settings. You can add lineups in here. So if you built out lineups for the full slates, I greatly prefer to build a giant pool of lineups and then drop that in and sim that. And then I'll take some of the lineups that the sim tool builds. But I think that you get more correctly built lineups if you actually use optimizers for full slates. For showdown slates, I'm a lot more inclined to just let fly just because of the way they come together. I'm always looking for some correlation between the quarterback and the pass catchers, but you are almost always going to get that if you just build random ass lineups anyway. So nothing wrong with, in a pinch, just dashing off one of these showdown slates, get 30,000 lineups, have it sim out, and take the best ones out of that. That's okay. But I think that brings us to the end, gang. So hit the like button down there. Hit the subscribe. I'll run a quick update on projections in the background. I get my lineups taken care of. We've got a little under a half hour to get everything done. But we're right there. Hopefully it's a good game. Solid Monday Night Football contest. 2 good teams. I mean, there is some letdown in both of these teams on the wrong day. But if they're really well matched, it should be a good one. So hopefully we get a good game. And Yankees and KC just got started. 0-0 in the bottom of the first. Yanks have a runner on already against Cole Ragans. Juan Soto at the plate. Ball 2. 2-1 count. Soto nodding back toward Ragans as he redoes his gloves. Stepping back into the box. Ragans a cold hard stare. The lefty comes set. Looks to first base. He fires. Ball 3. Soto doing the Soto shuffle. 3-1 he's probably taking here. Aaron Judge looking mean in the on-deck circle. Judge, the reputation for underperforming in the playoffs, but we'll see if that stays true in this monster year that he's had. Hitting behind Juan Soto, obviously big benefit to Aaron Judge. Ragans staring down Soto. He looks over to first base. Glaber dancing off of first. Ragans. Ball for... Oh, a bad call on an inside pitch. Curveball, it looked like. Looked like a curveball. Caught the inside corner according to the ump. I'd like to see it again. Aaron Boone not happy in the Yankees dugout. 3-2 pitch to Soto. Ragans set. The lefty deals. Ball 4 low. Tried to nibble low and away. 2 on, none out. Aaron Judge coming up. The monster righty against the southpaw. And we'll leave it with that. Enjoy the game, gang. Good luck out there tonight. Somebody go win something. We'll be back tomorrow, probably. I don't know what the baseball slate looks like tomorrow. If there's a decent slate, we'll jump on. We'll knock out a baseball show. Even though it's the playoffs, everything's the same and the season's locked. Still will be fun to talk. And no football. I'll do some football stuff during the week. We'll have content up early this week. Now that we're behind the paywall, I'm going to be on top of getting things up there early for you guys. So keep an eye on the website. Swing and a miss by Aaron Judge. 1-1. All right, let me get out of here and get everything updated. I'll see you guys.